this meeting to order. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So no, we're getting serious. People are leaning back again, so when I re-listen to the meeting to do the minutes, I can't hear you sometimes.
So you're specifically looking at me.
I was looking at that direction.
You do have a physical nature similar to urban sprawl.
Yes, I do.
Removing yourself. Roll call, please.
Trustee Coley,
Present.
trustee Lappin,
Here.
Oh, that's a hot mic.
clerk Palovich here, treasurer Ellery Summers here, trustee Kroll,
Excused absence.
trustee Reiner,
Here.
supervisor Skibby.
Here. Moving forward to the adoption of the agenda, I have one quick amendment to make, and that is taking under new business, item number 5, and rotating that to the top and making that new business item number 1, and then renumbering the succession of concurrent. Are there any other additions, corrections to the agenda as presented?
What's the new business? Did I miss something?
No,
You just
number-
changed the order.
The number is going to be
Okay.
changed. So number 5 is going to be shuffled up to number 1.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm
then
sorry.
1 will be 2, et cetera, et cetera.
Sorry.
No worries. If there's no other amendments to the agenda, all those in favor of
Should we make
approving?
a motion first?
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Amended agenda adopted. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If there is any public comment, please stand to the podium, state your name for the record. If you're online, please use the bottom taskbar, raise your hand, or shoot a message so that we can address you appropriately. Again, this is the first opportunity for public comment, so if there is anyone online, please raise your hand and let us know that you have a question. Otherwise, and nobody here representing the members of the public. Moving forward to the payment of the bills. I'll make a motion to make payment of the bills, or I'll entertain a motion to make payment of the bills.
A motion to pay bills.
We have a motion on the table to make payment of the bills. And there's
Support.
Support by trustee Reiner. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers. Yes. Trustee Kroll. Oh, sorry. Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Foley.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the minutes of August 23rd, 2021, which was a regular meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion on the table to approve the minutes of August 23rd, 2021. Is there support?
Yes.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Minutes approved. On to correspondence. Today we have a hearing notice from Alpena Power Company, the minutes of August 30th, the Planning Commission meeting, and the maintenance agreement from F&B Operations. I will entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion to receive and file the correspondence. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
The percentage of increase on the CPI has been confirmed somewhere along the line, I presume, with F&B, and that adjustment is in concert with what the contract says.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Excellent.
Okay,
No.
okay. All those in favor of receiving and filing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Old business, fire department update. I think what would be best for this conversation is for Mr. Schultz. If you would like to step to the podium, is the mic on? Okay, the mic is on. Don't fade too far away from the mic as you previously have heard. And this is the opportunity with Rhino's report for this board to interact with the office. So,
Okay, thank you. Is this fine?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being here today, Rhino. You had met previously some time ago with both Michelle and I with some discussion after the report was drafted. But this is the first opportunity that the board as a whole has the opportunity to ask questions of your report. So I'll
Perfect.
leave the table open.
Okay, thank you.
Comprehensive, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Brent, is there anything specific in the report that you want to point out to us to make sure I mean, I know we've all read it, probably some more than one, but.
Okay. Yes, Michelle, I think in general, the general trend of the organizational diagnosis that I conducted for the fire department was, I think there is a big push for change for the fire department to do things differently. I think that change has been coming for the last number of years. Actually, it's not only the last 2 or 3 years. So it is something that it looks like the gears have just not moved for various reasons. So this report was just try and diagnose what I think, and this is just my opinion again. Wherever possible, I try to use source information from past minutes, from interviews, from discussions, from documentary evidence to try and substantiate whatever I picked up. So the general trend for me is that, yes, there is a definite need for change in the fire department. And if I could compare it to a rocket ship, there is definite push in terms of the rocket's propulsion to get it off the ground, but there are very, very firm powers, gravitational powers, keeping the rocket ship from moving. So through the report, I've hopefully identified some of those powers trying to keep the rocket ship from changing or from going into orbit. So strategic leadership, I think from the Board of Trustees, I think clear instruction of where the fire department needs to go, identify goals going forward, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to reevaluate. I think it's all things that we have discussed since the report. And yeah, to just put some certain systems in place. The summary that I put sort of towards the end of the report, there's a tabled summary. And some of it speaks about transformational factors. The transformational factors would be things that will come from the board. That's things like strategic leadership and those sort of things. And then there are transactional factors that will have to be put in place. Those are policies, procedures, management principles, performance management systems. So I could not find a lot of things holding the now exited chief accountable in terms of performance management, key performance indicators, things like that. But those are all systems that you can put in place, and those will kind of just dot the I's. I think the majority of what we're seeing is that power to push the rocket ship into orbit, that needs to come from the board with clear instruction and with decisiveness. And I think then definitely the fire department will be sustainable. There's obviously a fiscal risk to the current state of the fire department, but honestly, I don't think that is unsustainable. And I'm not saying that as an accountant. I think there's probably better accountants here than me, but I don't think it's an unsustainable rocket ship, if I could put it that way. I think it's definitely sustainable, but it just needs to be tweaked, and there needs to be clear leadership and management principles and practices put in place.
And going to the conversation that Michelle, you and I have had, the only time that we sat down was, you had mentioned that with the timeline, that timeline was kind of a crunch to being even more comprehensive in this document because you were under a very tight, could you add to that, I guess, for the board?
Yes, definitely. I'll be honest, that crunched timeline was self-imposed. So the board didn't put me under any sort of pressure. It was self-imposed because at the time I felt that we would probably be moving on soon. So I gave us roughly about a month or so to complete the report. And just the deeper I went into kind of just immersing myself in the fire department and the board's decisions and the historical information, the deeper I got in. And I had so much data to try and churn and decipher and decrypt. So yeah, to make a long story short, there was a lot of information. And honestly speaking, I do think that further unpacking the report and unpacking the process of diagnosis will be really important. I mentioned to Mr. Skibby and to Ms. Palovich, that things like doing personality analysis on the various leadership elements, for example, in the board, and to see those inner workings, that would be something that would be of great benefit. Understanding each other, understanding the leadership elements of the decision-making at the board is very important. Sadly, I couldn't meet with all of you to try and discern and to try and confirm some of the information that I got. Wherever possible, I try to confirm the information with various sources, but I literally ran out of time. Like, for example, I would have loved to meet a little bit more with Nathan. We had one telephone conversation, and in the report, I'll be honest, and I admitted to that in the report, I said that was the length of our conversation, is one telephonic conversation just about expectations and things like that. But Michelle and I, at least, we had a detailed meeting. We had a lot of time. I spent a lot of time with the exited chief, Chief Robbins. So I do think that in general, the report should be accurate. I do think there's a lot of documentary evidence. I went through the minutes from the last 9 years. The township board meeting minutes, that was very valuable. So I do think there's a lot of information, but I do think if we do have time, I think it would be excellent to kind of unpack that a little bit more and to go into a little bit more detail.
I like the grid towards the end of your presentation that talks about threats and opportunities. And it seems to me as though we should probably try to establish a point-by-point way of chipping away to some of these threats and or expounding upon some of these opportunities. Would you say that the way you've laid that out in your report would be a reasonable way of following that?
Yes, I tried as much as possible to make it a simple process to follow. If you have a look at that table that you're referring to, it is set in two different sections. The one section is listed as transformational factors. Those transformational factors are, if you can compare this whole system of the fire department to a motor vehicle, to a car, those transformational factors are the engine. So anything else will build on top of that. The transformational factors are foundational elements. So even if you put the best transactional parts, so sort of, if you could say the gears of the whole fire department, if you put the best gear system in place, if the engine is faulty or if the engine is weak, no amount of excellent gears will make the vehicle run. So if I could give you simple advice, is if you take that grid, if the board can focus on the transformational factors first, and those are things of leadership, for example, the relationship amongst yourselves, the trust relationships, the strategic goal setting amongst yourselves, if you can focus on that as a short-term measure, and then the transactional factors, the last part of that grid, those will be sort of management practices, putting policies and procedures in place, key performance indicators for the firemen, for the fire chief, just kind of management systems. Then I think you will have a really excellent prospect of success.
Thank you.
Yes, trustee Paul.
Basically, what I read out of this report is pretty well history of where the fire department has been, where it is to its present day when you finish the report. So I think there's a lot of great history in there. And what I get out of this is how can we improve what we were presently doing? Is that basically where we're going?
Yes, sir. A lot of the report was history that contextualized the diagnosis of where you currently are. So I think going forward, if you had to focus on the grid, that I think it's the second last page of the report. If you focus on that grid and try and resolve some of those issues, that would be an excellent place to start. I didn't even go into helping in terms of goal setting, strategic goal setting, things like that. It's something that as long as we are here, I made myself available to the board. As long as we are available, I would be glad to assist you guys through that process. But yes, to answer your question, this report is historical and it's just a point in time where you guys are at the moment. And it was just to diagnose the current status quo, but it's nothing going into the future yet.
This is an, I'm sorry.
So at this point, we have a good historical past of where it's at, potential corrections of what we can do to move forward with what we presently have.
Yes, sir.
So there is, I'm still looking for that, as I call it, the plan, but apparently that's going to come, I think, from the fire committee or the chief or whatever, but so I understand this, that it is what has been done, where it's at, and how we could potentially improve these.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, trustee Lett.
Well, what I was going to say also is that this is an excellent tool for new fire chief to decipher and to see where the pitfalls had been and to chip away at those issues, both within the fire department and with the township board, so that there is that synergy that we so badly need in this organization.
Yes, sir. Yep, 100%.
Trustee Reiner.
You know, maybe I'm focused too much on specifics and you're giving us a broader, more general, I think, concept of corrections that perhaps should be made at this level, at the board level, as well as at the fire department level separately. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Yes, that is, it's definitely, this is a big macro view of the current system of the fire department. Yes.
So you think that for the board, there needs to be some training to make us more homogeneous?
I think, to be honest, I think diversity is actually a strength. And from just getting to know some of the board members, I think you as a board, you guys are quite diverse in terms of age, in terms of, we had a brief discussion about that when we were debriefing, but just the cohort of age, for example, you are a very dynamic group. And that's excellent because it is exactly the same as your residents. Your residents are a dynamic group. So yes, I do think there needs to be, if I can refer to Mr. Lappin's word of synergy, there needs to be better synergy. I think the narrowness of the voting margin on the fire department, that speaks volumes in its own. But I don't think that is a lack of synergy. I think the fact that the vote went to 4-3, if I remember correctly, for the fire to retain the fire department or to outsource, I don't think that's a problem. That's actually a good strength. And it shows that you guys can debate things robustly and that the work can carry on. So I don't see that as a weakness, but I do think there needs to be more synergy. And why I'm saying that is from a consultant's point of view, an external consultant's point of view, I do get the impression that some of the forces holding that rocket ship at bay, if I can go back to the rocket ship analogy, there are some of those forces on the board. And that needs to be, without that momentum, then the chief can try all he wants, but there will not be enough momentum for the chief. So I think perhaps it's something as a consultant I can help the board with in terms of that position of synergy, working together, how to resolve differences and those sort of things. But it's unexplored, and I'm just shooting from the hip now.
Okay, now I'm going to go to a specific then that you pointed out. And maybe you put in the time period, and maybe I missed it in my scan of the document, but you said that our actual expenses for the fire department were about $1.2+ million. And that was on page 29. Could you, if you didn't, could you tell me what the time period was that you analyzed that to get to that number, and whether that included equipment or just operation?
If I remember correctly, this is just from memory, but if I remember correctly, I think Michelle and I discussed, that was in our meeting that we discussed the financials, and I got a copy of the financials. I think that was just the previous completed financial year. I think that would be 2020.
That would have included a non-emergency transfer in there too, Russ,
Yeah,
because that was the previous financial year.
So that included a period of time where we did non-emergency transfers.
Yeah, so
That's
that would
correct.
add to expenses and stuff.
that's correct. The financial part of the report was a bit of a moving target because so many things had changed in terms of staff expenditure, a number of resignations in the previous financial year, the non-emergency transfers, the income coming in. So it would have been difficult to make a like-for-like comparison because so many things have changed between 2020 and 2021 financial years.
And then the other thing was that I noticed that was the discrepancy in the number of calls shown by dispatch compared to the department. Could you ever get a handle on how that discrepancy came about?
My honest feeling was that I got two sources of information that contradicted each other. One was the call numbers and things from the actual fire department, which I received from the fire chief. The other source information was from the county 911 dispatch. And I think I even said in the report, if I had to take a wager on what information to trust, I would probably lean on the 911 dispatch information, just because it's probably more official. Also, the information that I got was system generated from the 911 dispatch, whereas the other information was an Excel system. So there was nothing. There was nothing really to kind of stir my confidence in the Excel-based information. And I'm not saying that was incorrect, but it was two different sources of information. I had to make a call, and
From your evaluation, do you have a recommendation, and maybe you made it and I don't know, but I'm just asking you to express it here, on how involved this board should be in the operations part of the fire department compared to what the history is that you found?
That's an excellent question. My opinion would be, considering where the fire department is, I think the board needs to be very involved. I do think that the committee, the fire department committee, was a great help at filtering some of the information, because, for example, I would not expect Mr. Skibby to be at each and every meeting to see each and every document, for example. But I do think that there needs to be a lot more involvement. I think things like trust, especially the trust element, I think that came out, if I could say, like really aggressively in the meetings that we had with the firefighters, the lack of trust between the firefighters at that level and the board members. And I think that element of trust was just that the firefighters probably did not perceive that the board were actively involved and that they knew what was going on. And I think that's a perception. And I think that's maybe, I don't know if that perception is true or not, but I do think to repair that trust relationship, the board needs to be actively involved. I would say something, for example, I think I said it in my report, I touched on it, something as basic as a weekly one-on-one, for example, between the fire department committee and the fire chief, or maybe on top of that, maybe a once a month collective meeting between all the board members and the fire department, or there's many ways to skin a cat, but I think definitely some involvement is paramount. That's the momentum that I'm talking about. That momentum will have to come from the board. But later on, the fire department can implement other trinkets and systems and things, but those will be the gears of the vehicle. The actual engine, the drive will come from the board, will have to come from the board.
So I have some.
I'm gonna kind of go off of your rocket ship metaphor for a little bit, because where we would notice the most gravitational pull would be closer to the earth. And that the further away from the earth you go, the less gravitational pull there would be. So if I'm hearing what you're saying,
Yes.
is that this board should be deeply involved until such time as the gravitational pull is lessened, and then let the rocket ship go, but mission control will still sort of oversee what's going on.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's
Wonderful
exactly.
analogies.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a
Exactly.
later analogy, but I'm going to leave it.
Yes. Geez,
No,
yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that I am certainly willing to stay on that committee. I think it's important. I do believe that the 3 or 4 meetings that we had with the not only paid on call, but also full-time, I really do believe that it was beneficial. And I do believe that they felt a more of a kinship, more of a connection with that obscure board that they didn't really understand. So I would
Yes.
continue to stay on that.
Yes, trustee Fuller.
I think just one thing we need to remember is the board is still the employer. And I believe the board, as being the employer, does come with some of the rules that go along with whatever, because it's all about budget and money. So
Of course.
I think can't leave that out and forget about it.
And I guess if there was, and as I previously had mentioned in our last conversation, because of that time crunch, and now that we're to this point of discussion of this document as it stands to this point, knowing that, and I, like I said before, I hate to say that there are deficiencies, but because of that time crunch, certain discussions didn't take place. Now that we're past this false pretext of time crunch, would it be something that would be beneficial to us as an organization to allow you to expand that historical reference to make sure that both sides are fully addressed, and that way we do have, maybe because part of that story may have been missed because of the time crunch, you stated that the vast majority of your time was asking fire department there, and that's how you got some of that historical data outside of the minutes. To really be an unbiased, do you think that if moving forward, we should maybe have some of those further exploratory conversations to make sure that this is a sound document on both sides and it represents the township? And I'm asking you as a consultant, would that be, or do we just say good is good and let's take the next step?
I would say my honest opinion is it depends if those deficiencies are so glaringly obvious and it's completely incorrect. Then yes, we can go and re-explore it. But if in general you as a board feel that the report was more or less what you guys feel, what you see, and it gives a little bit more information on what you guys are perceiving. But yes, there is truth in it, and we do agree with what it says. Then I think going further into more detail will probably be a waste of time. But if you guys feel that the report looks factually incorrect, and honestly, we would have to revisit it, then I would be glad. Honestly, like I said, I will reiterate, while I'm here, I'm at your disposal and I'm willing to help.
I would just like to comment too. Thank you for doing that.
My
It's
pleasure.
greatly appreciated by all of us. But I do think it's, you said you're willing to go to the next step. We have a new chief, we have a new vision, to kind of work in that process and then see, the things that we could have worked on, how those are getting better and improving.
And to bolster Laura's point, you had mentioned earlier in this conversation that, especially when it came to the budgetary issues, is that so many changes have been made by the engine that it's hard to extrapolate and look at what it is. So maybe to add to Laura's point, that maybe with the continuation of the discussions in the committee, maybe that's something that you could be involved in and start looking at, let's just, for a lack of a better term, a stop-start point of
Yep.
a decision was made, 3-4 vote. Now this is a direction that the board is exploring. New chief, a lot of new variables that have been put in place. And maybe that's, at least for a little while, sit as a rider and make notes. And maybe there's going to be some, a secondary part to this document. I don't think that there's anything that's glaring in this document. Like I spoke to you before. I don't think there's anything other than, I interviewed and we talked about, there was the phone. I said, yeah, take as much time as you need. So outside of that, there wasn't a lot of interaction. I know, and for time condensing purposes, your primary contacts of the board were Michelle, Steve. So maybe, like I said, maybe downstream, there's some things that we can actually fold back in because there's other board members, there's a new chief, there's a lot of new variables at play. And it'd be something to
Perfect.
potentially explore.
As well as I even like to comment too, new staff. I mean, we're working
Yes.
on rebuilding, so that all is a
Yeah.
key player in the whole.
So, yes, I
perfect.
agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And I think we may want a little bit more of it, especially since your sabbatical is extended a little longer than you initially anticipated. And I don't think at some point in time you can continue to call it a holiday. Now that you're enrolled and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think that from my point of view, Rhino, a deep appreciation on behalf of the
Yes.
board. And I think that there's still some work that we can do together.
Fantastic. It was
Yes,
my pleasure.
trustee Paul.
Rhino, thank you.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. It really was.
Yes.
So, and we'll work out the details, but I would be glad to help.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Moving forward is the contract that Lizzie, by the board's actions, put together for Chief Hanson. It's exactly as the motion stated at our previous meeting. And at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion to move forward with signing of the contract that is presented for Fire Chief Hanson.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
Support.
That's
He
okay.
was really close to the mic.
Yeah.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Item E4. Just want to make sure that we are not stepping on the wrong potential toes. And I just want to understand what, I believe what we're trying to do makes sense. But I don't want to put ourselves in a position that we are compromising insurance coverage. So if the township should enter into a compromise or a settle or payment of any claims, I would like it to be with the understanding or in concert with the insurance provider. Because if we make a settlement, they're out, regardless of whatever the fallout is. So I don't know if we shouldn't amend this that says something like the township in concert or in agreement with the insurance carrier may compromise, compromise, settle, or pay claims. I would not like to exclude them out of that.
So then trustee Lappin, would you please clearly and concisely lay the language out in between may and compromise so that we can make an appropriate amendment to the contract?
Well, what I wrote down was the township, comma, in concert or agreement with its insurance carrier, comma, may compromise, settle, and so on. I just think it's important to not take them out of the loop.
So in your primary language inclusion is.
In concert or agreement
in-
with its insurance carrier.
In agreement with insurance carrier
Yes.
or provider.
It's with it.
It's,
With this, yeah.
So we're talking about covered
Really?
liability.
That's, yeah, well, and if it wasn't covered, then it wouldn't have to worry about what the
In concert
insurance
with,
carrier
okay,
would say.
all right.
So,
Do you feel a need for us to have veto power over any settlement or compromise of a claim by the insurance carrier?
well, as a general rule, there would be discussions between an insurance carrier and its customer, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the customer would always get what they want. So if a customer felt like they wanted to dig their heels into something and
Take it to court.
yeah, it may not be in the best interest of anyone to do that.
That's a common provision in a professional liability.
It's a pretty common provision in most insurance policies.
I'm talking about what I said.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Oh,
yep.
okay. Do you-
And with regard to the obvious one would be sort of a malpractice sort of
That's what I
suit
was talking about,
that would
professional
happen here.
liability.
And there is a sort of a consent that is agreed to, but I just don't want to take them out of the loop, just in case.
I don't disagree with that part of it. I just wondered whether we should retain any kind of settlement authority or approval of settlement authority.
It's, I can't speak for all insurance policies, but the ones that I'm familiar with would have you essentially in consent with. They would encourage you to say,
They would encourage you
should do this. But I can't say that you would have the ability to completely override it.
I've got two small changes in section 2, first line, the term of this agreement shall be for an initial period of 3 year. So if we got rid of the year, the written year, the first one,
Oh, yeah.
and a dash, so initial period of 3 parentheses 3 years, and add an S, the year, and then on the last page, subsection C at the top, it's got the Mr. Hanson reports to, so just Mr. Hanson, so just getting rid of a the. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trust us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're the engine. We're on a rocket ship.
We're still sitting on the ground with smoke coming.
So with that being said, with the 3 amendments that have been discussed here, with those amendments to this contract, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make the motion
I already
to,
made,
motion.
I already made the motion and Steve supported it and I
Oh.
will,
With the friendly amendment,
yes.
okay, and to the
Correct,
supporter
yep,
with the 3 corrections,
yes.
okay. Roll call.
Trustee Reiner,
yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes,
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes.
I had to mess with them.
So at this
Can you
point in
explain your
time,
hesitation?
Chief Hanson, would you like to give a report or putting forth anything to the board? You do have, I'll make mention that there is a little packet that everybody should have in front of them as well.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's been a rocket ship for the first 5 days, I will tell you that much. I've learned a lot. We've been hitting the ground running. But just some things I wanted to go over first with you. We've done an interview with Mr. James Bolanowski. We sometimes call him Jimmy, sometimes we call him Tony, and sometimes he's Jimmy Tony. Because his dad's name is Tony, so that's just the problem that I have. And well, anyhow, we interviewed James on, was it the 9th? 9th?
I don't have my calendar. with me.
Thank you. We're waiting some certifications that have been held up through the Firefighters Training Council. They weren't submitted properly. The paperwork was not submitted properly to the class that he took. He's passed the class. There was a whole group of area firefighters that are waiting for the lights and siren driver's training certificate so they can be legal to be behind the vehicle. We're still waiting that. There's a lot of hands trying to get those documents to us.
I just want to, I have spoken to the instructor. He did pass, and we're just waiting for the state to get the certificate issued.
But first and foremost, I wanted to introduce Jimmy to the board and have his consideration for employment. As soon as we can get pending his certificates and whatever else, physicals and different things like that would be needed, excuse me. Mine's running a mile a minute here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let Jimmy go at this point because he's already missed one call since he's been in here. So I would thank him for being here. We're hoping that the board will consider him as a full-time person.
Are you recommending him?
I am recommending him for hire for the township, yes.
Well, and to that end, what the rest of the board may or may not know is in this first 5, well, actually, let's just call it 7 days. We've had employees that were potentially looking at being off because of injuries. Mr. Bolanowski has stepped up under our existing LOA that goes till September 30th, allowing him to fill not filling shifts at this point because we're waiting on some paperwork, but actually kind of being folded in and pulling 12-hour shifts
Training.
and training. And he's been extremely helpful from my seat thus far. So-
Definitely from mine.
So,
He's stepping up big time, so, and they all are. Yeah, Laura.
Oh, I wanted Nathan to
This is
comment.
full.
yes, Laura, but thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion that we offer James Bolanowski position contingent upon him getting the rest of the paperwork that's needed.
So,
Could we get on, and I'll be passing all the other
yeah, so
pre-hiring
Any-
There's
requirements.
other
any
things, backgrounds and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Are
Pre-requirements.
you from Hubbard Lake?
yes.
Okay.
Coming from a former prosecuting attorney.
No,
that
no
was-
problem at all. I just know mom.
Like a
yeah.
fuel cell just rocket sputtering. To
Knowing the
eclipse.
character of the parents, that's not supposed to be part of it, right, Jim?
So we have a motion on the table, a recommendation for hire contingent upon the hiring process documentation and the waiting for the vehicles, lights and sirens testing mechanism. Correct, Laura?
Yep, that's exactly it.
So we have a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support it.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion.
This would be all with the usual sort of
The physical
structural
drug
of the
screen.
structure that we currently
Yes,
have in
our
place
current-
with pensions and salaries. Yes,
It-
Okay,
By the union contract.
okay. by
We're
way of
still,
payment,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is for firefighter right now, MFR job description. So we have any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner.
Yes.
I always get the roll calls. It's the discussion I lose,
As long as you
okay?
can hear us.
Yes, since you didn't, you
Oh,
started with me.
Supervisor
I didn't think I heard the
Skibby.
last
I
vote.
mean,
so.
there's. we got-
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes, yes, thank you. This rocket, love it.
Welcome
So thank you
aboard.
very much, Mr. Bolanowski. We look
Congratulations.
forward to the
Welcome to the
remainder of your
township.
paperwork.
Yes.
So Blaine?
Yeah, his name on the sheet is 5-0 Bolanowski.
When he can, he's
Yeah.
working for us quite a
Thank
bit right
you.
now.
Tell your
Thank you
mother I
very much,
asked about
James.
it.
Okay.
And he has a smile that doesn't quit.
Chief
All right.
Hanson.
Just a further update, day 2, I met with the insurance risk control manager, Mike Gambos. We're trying to get some policies and SOPs and SOGs in place. I went a little bit under the weather that day, so I had to cut my meeting short, but we're going to reschedule again. And kind of helps there. I've known Mike a long, long time, so getting his advice and different things like that, I think we're going to be able to get rolling very quickly on getting those SOPs and SOGs in place. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. Currently, number 3 on my list here, I am working on getting an instructor for a CPR AED training for all township employees or whoever the board deems necessary to be at that training. But I think if everybody gets the opportunity, they should probably go to that. If nothing else, even if you've done it 20 years in a row, let's do it for 21. And just, there's one hanging on the wall. Who knows how to use it?
Michelle.
Michelle does not. We've
I
already
do,
had this
you
discussion.
do, but
I know how to use it, but I can't
Well,
use it on
And
myself.
I'll cut out the middleman here from Chief Hanson. Can everybody read at this board? Because if you can, you can actually use that
Yes,
device.
you can.
And if you can't read, there's actually some pictograms. So we got it covered 2 different ways.
I've been
exactly.
asking for 4 years for CPR training.
I'm working on it. I have one instructor already lined up. I'm working for a different one, just to see what we do. But I've had one person volunteer. Also, the county, you'll see a page, it might not, it's going to look like this. I just received it from Mark Hall, the county 911 director. They have a countywide partnership program going with the ambulance and first responder millage that was passed. They have $150,000 for communication devices, which would be portable radios, pagers, mobiles of that nature. And what they're looking at right now, and I'll refer to my notes here, if all the departments were to go into this project together, they will have an option to be able to get 2 portable radios with the chance of 6 pagers. Now it's separate. If you got 2 portables, the county will buy 2 portables. So it would basically like a 50-50 matching grant for us, if you will. So right now, we're actually in need of 6 pagers. I don't have a pager even. So, but we have some other part paid folks that don't have pagers. They have active 911, but that's not always very reliable or delayed. So the pager is our quickest response. So getting those folks with that means of communication, I'm not so much worried about if they're not full-time staff, them having a portable radio. That's not necessary because they're going to come here. They're going to get into a vehicle which has radio equipment in it. So they should be able to take care of that on scene. One of our full-time firefighters is more than likely going to be the incident commander. It's just a matter of on-scene communications. We'll worry about that when we get to that bridge. But right now we're kind of in need. And Mr. Hall gave me an estimated amount of our, and I'm looking at the 6 pagers as our priority to be able to get our firefighters notified. He said, unless everybody goes, if everybody goes with the purchase, now there might be a department in there that doesn't need anything, so they may not buy into this program. But if all 9 departments were to buy into the program, our cost would be about $1,800 to $2,000-ish, is what he said. He doesn't have an exact total until we know how many people are buying into the program. But at this point in time, I'd like to entertain that we take advantage of the proposal from the county, because basically we're all paying for that in a millage anyhow. And they're going to offer that to our department. As long as everybody else's department picks in, we'll be at that $1,800 to $2,000 range to get 6 pagers. And
That's total.
And 2
per.
portables.
no,
What you need to put.
I read the note like that too, Mr.
It
Reinhardt.
said or.
And I went and I called Mark Hall. He goes, read the note again, because everybody that, yeah, everybody that read it got excited like I did. It's like, really? For 18, so, but only 6 pagers is what I'm going for. We do need a couple other portable radios, and it may be a time to purchase them at the big buy-in, but that's something I'm gonna review a little bit more and see. We're in the process of doing a radio inventory right now, pager inventory.
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 Yeah, that was part of my notes too.
Hey, March 3rd.
That's our deadline. So we are truly working hard at getting that information for you folks, because if we don't know what we have, we just can't operate that way. So that's my goal. We've been working hard on that, and I will say that the full-time staff has been fantastic. If I've given them something to research, they're on it, and I've had great success so far. So
Yes, Lord.
Is it between 1,800 and 2,000
Ish.
for 6 radios or per
6 pages.
no, for 6 pagers.
total price for 6 of
Right.
them?
And between
Not to
18 and 2.
exceed.
Okay,
So,
right.
And it's
So
all,
say that.
it's all variant on who's going to buy into the program.
so I guess with that, what is the timeline on that?
It's coming up very soon. I think he's trying to come, the note that I've got for him and the call that we talked about, he needs it as soon as possible.
So at this point, with the recommendation from Chief Hansen, I guess I would entertain a motion to move forward with the recommendation not to exceed $2,000.
So we want the 6 pagers.
Right. And if it does happen to go over the $2,000 because a department doesn't buy into this program, well, then we'll have to get 5 pagers.
Or we just bring it back,
Or I can bring it back. Yeah.
So what is not to exceed? What is the amount?
2,000.
Okay, and we would pay this out of the equipment
Equipment, no.
GL
Yep.
205-336-956.
I was going to confer with the 3 of you just to make sure, but that's what I'm recommending.
956.
That's what I'm recommending.
So,
And there is money in there.
Was that a motion?
There's 12,000.
well, if that.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to move forward with the recommendation of Chief Hansen and support by trustee Reiner for 6 pagers through the county program not to exceed $2,000. We have motion and support. Further discussion?
Just for my
Who supported
own,
it?
Russ.
just for my own education, these pagers are essentially internal pagers, right? They're not to be confused with the 800 megahertz
That's correct.
radios.
What the pager is designed to do, it has its own call frequency, basically. So a person at night can set that to our channel, and you'll only get woke up by traffic for our station or our township. So a portable radio doesn't have the ability to block out all other calls. So if you leave that on, you're hearing every piece of traffic that goes on in the county, and you just can't get any sleep. So if somebody has a pager, it just signals when our department gets toned out.
So this won't be for paid on call. This will be pagers for full-time staff.
It's going to be for both, because that's the only way of us notifying paid on call.
You have some pagers now,
Yes, we do.
just not enough.
Right. Then they had, I believe they purchased them last year under the same program. I did not go back on the board reports to see when that happened, but
We received last year from the county program 2 base model radios and then 2 portables.
right. So
So an officer in the department that does the paging,
no, central dispatch.
central dispatch will do the
That-
paging, but
and we
only to our
can-
department.
But we do have the ability, an officer can send a page out to our own staff, like if there's a meeting or something like that, we can send an internal page. We can also use active 911 for that. And that's how they're, messaging. And I don't even have all those privileges yet to do that. So I'm calling shift guys and saying, hey, I need you to send me this message out on active 911 because we're gonna have a meeting. And so day 5, I'm still a little underwater right at the moment, but I'm getting there. So we will, I do feel like that rocket ship though.
Yeah.
So
Well, so we have a motion and support. Any other discussion? Otherwise, roll call, please.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Anything else?
Yep, I just wanted to give you a couple more updates here. Just wanted to go over run activity since your last board meeting on August 23rd through yesterday. We've had a total of 79 emergency runs. 48 of those were of medical. And we had 8 vehicle accidents, 11 service calls. That would be lift assist and different things like that nature. Hazardous calls, which most of those were down power lines in the storm. So they code that as a hazardous response because of the danger. And 5 fires overall. 2 of them were structure fires. One was basically considered a total loss over on Michigan Avenue. I have not received information back from the state fire marshal's office on that investigation yet, or even if they come to a conclusion. Also, the structure fire that we had on Long Rapids Road, it was focused around the gas meter. At this point in time, we don't know what was really the cause of that, but the focus of that fire was in that area. They did a very nice job, and that was not a total loss. So there was smoke damage and different damage, obviously. But from what I understand, some salvaging is going to be able to take place there. So that's a good thing. That's it on run activities.
I have a question.
Yes.
So there were 79 total runs. What were the other 2? Because when I add them up, I get 77. So what would be like a miscellaneous run?
I would think there would be canceled calls.
Okay.
So they were disregarded, basically.
Okay.
Well, not disregarded because that's not a word. I always had a gal that I used to work with before saying disregarded is not a word. So they were canceled.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. One more thing on my agenda here, training. I'm going to be sending with the board's approval, and I'm not sure that we need to do this, but I just want to make sure that you were informed. We're going to send young James Bolanowski and Matt Benedict to isolation and quarantine for rural communities training at the Gaylord Community Center. Also, a required class for both of those individuals is the Incident Command ICS 300 and 400. Anybody that's on the department within 2 years, they have to qualify for that. The training doesn't become available very often. They're kind of a long and drawn out training, but those are also at the Gaylord Community Center. And I would like to send those 2 individuals to those 3 trainings, and we just keep going in the right direction.
Do we know what the cost involved in these trainings are?
Basically, from what I understand, and I've got to get some more clarification, but it's just going to be our cost for transportation and wages to have them.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Robbie Edmonds from the City Fire is the one that gave me the initial note, and I'm going to do more follow-up with him, but to get more clarification.
So I guess, I don't know if the board knows about the chief mobile either.
No.
That we got from the state, so I think you might want to inform the board of that too.
Okay, there's a federal surplus program that the Department of Natural Resources has in conjunction with the U.S. Forest Service. And our surplus people can go to different air bases or military installations when a vehicle's tagged for no longer using with the military. And quite a bit, they have a lot of nice stuff. Well, we've got a Chevy Trailblazer as a command unit, free of charge from the federal government, just like your engine 3, that the green pumper, just like the brush truck out at Station 2 that's sitting out there, like one of your first ambulances you had, the big generators, those all come from that same program. This vehicle's on loan to us as long as we so desire to use it. When we're done with it, all I do is make a call to the forest fire supervisor and say, come pick it up. So our maintenance obligations are ours. I mean, the day-to-day brakes, tires, that stuff, oil changes, everything's our responsibility as far as maintenance. But basically, it's a free vehicle for us to get ourselves moving in the right direction to, get something for nothing. It's a little cost, but we've got that. It's sitting out back. It's white in color. We're looking at equipping that as a command vehicle with the placards and stuff that represent the township. lucky for us, I have the unit that we got. I happen to know the guy from Lansing. As soon as I opened up the door on the vehicle, I goes, oh, we're taking this truck, because he's got a logbook for every mile on the truck. There's a base radio station in it. All we have to do is put our handheld radio in it. So that's like 2,500 that we don't have to mess with. But we're gonna need to get lights and sirens for the vehicle, equipped properly. You gotta be able to be 360 visible. So that vehicle will be to the disposal of township business, and obviously operate as a command vehicle for me to be in. And we have our name on a list for another one for a future position. And I don't know if you want me to bring that up today.
We're not there yet.
Not
I think
there
we're
yet.
gonna have some more conversations.
Absolutely. But so that's a little lowdown on that. Michelle got to go for a little ride in it yesterday with me. Sorry that you haven't got the chance yet.
Yeah, so this actually just, and this is before Mark was even hired, I chauffeured Chief Hansen down to Rose Lake and then back up to Gaylord, where we ended up. We went to both sites that they have these vehicles located. We put one in reserve down in Rose Lake with anticipation of it being a fallback vehicle. Luckily enough, at the Gaylord yard, we found one that, like I said, when he knew it wasn't Miami Vice, but Don Johnson
Yeah.
and his logbook of anal perfection. So it was a good decision. So
I mean,
Yes, Lord.
they're certainly not, they're not new vehicles. I mean, it's a 2006. It has 107,000 miles on it, but we can get a lot more miles out of that vehicle. So
Laura,
I just for clarification, so the training in Gaylord that Matt and James will go to, they'll carpool together. So we're
that,
not
and
paying.
use the
Well,
vehicle.
I was gonna say, wouldn't they use this vehicle? Okay.
Yes.
that would
So
be the
then you have
intention.
no
So we have
cost.
fuel
Yeah.
costs, basically.
Right,
Yeah, that's the
just to be
intention.
clear,
Yeah.
so two people aren't driving and
Right.
whatever, you know,
We will make every effort to save
we
the
have to.
cash.
Yep.
That's a good answer.
We like that answer.
And,
Getting back to
and
the
with that being
synergy.
said, before I do anything, I usually come and soundboard off the board members that are here. And I'm happy to do that with board members that are not here. If they want a phone call, I have no problem doing that. I'll put you all on speed dial. I'll get your numbers, and I'll run it by you. We're like this gentleman says, if we don't do it together, we're not doing it. It's not going to happen.
And the last note in terms of fire department, I want to say that I received a communication from the city that said that we should be extremely, over the weekend, we had a cardiac call. And we should honestly be giving our full thanks to Luke Meisner, Jeremy Jones, Matt Klemchek, and Kevin Ginter for their CPR response. And as it stands, I believe, saving a woman's life. So the communication I got with the city was that it was seamless, professional, and we should be proud. So I wanted to make that statement here and
So
acknowledge that there are positives, even though we're going through negative.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Just
Anything else?
one last thing, if it's not on my agenda, but if you'll just allow me. The current full timers that we have, I want to just throw a shout out to them at the board meeting here. They have been working tireless hours, 10, 11, 12, 24-hour shifts in a row. So as a board and our action down the road and my position of trying to recommend, we really need to look at relieving them eventually as soon as we possibly can, to getting at least a minimal amount of staff on so they can enjoy a day off a time or two. And a special thanks to the part paid people that have come in, picking up shifts. It's been fantastic. It's been great working with these guys. Anything I've asked them to do, they've been on top of it. No complaints from my end.
wonderful.
Great news.
Michelle.
I will drop off the folder of resumes we have for firefighter, EMT, MFRs at your office before I leave today.
Excellent.
You go through
I
that.
And,
thought you were gonna break them.
I forgot.
and with that being said, I would reach out to members of the board or whatever our process is going to be to help me review those.
It's the personnel committee that, so anytime.
Okay. I kind of figured, but if anybody wants to look through them with me, I'm happy to help,
Yeah.
start that process. So,
Trustee Paul.
Who's on the
Oh.
personnel committee?
It's
Cash.
Cash, Michelle, and myself.
I want to thank Laura. She just reminded me of something else that is not on the list, but you have, yours are black and white. But these are monitor nozzles, okay, on our two engines that we currently have. The monitor nozzle is the big gun on, for those that don't know, is the big gun on top of the truck that is like a 3-inch, 4-inch line that you can put out huge volumes of water to quickly douse a fire, or, something that's a little bit further away that we can't get to, but we can use a monitor nozzle to make that successful extinguishment. When the trucks were purchased, it's my understanding that was missed. I don't know if it was missed or if it was cut from a budgetary concern or not. I don't have that back history, but what I do know is that on one of our structure fires that we had the other day on Michigan Avenue, had we had one of those, it would have made life a lot easier and less fatigue on the limited staff that we do have. So right now, I'm currently, well, I guess I'm in the form of a bagging mode with the company that sold us the truck. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm trying to see if they would be willing to maybe donate one and then we purchase one. I don't know how we're going to come off on that request, but
And Trustee Lappin can help you with grant opportunities.
Thank you.
And so I know that I already heard him getting closer to the mic.
I would entertain it.
Excellent. Give me a call, please.
I will. After the board meeting, I want to get everybody's numbers if I can, to make sure I can call them.
Yes, Laura.
So you said we would need 2 of these. Does neither
Right.
engine have
Yeah,
one of these?
neither engine has one at this time. I mean, and I'll go this far as say, if we need to start in one direction, because we do have a little bit of money in our budget that we could purchase one. If I can't get this deal to happen with R&R, we need one in the township. So because a structure fire, we will eventually have both of our units there. But sometimes when you're low on manpower, this is an item that you can pull up. That individual can hook to a hydrant and they can hit it very quickly with this large volume of water. And it could possibly make the difference of sitting there for 1 hour working on a structure fire or being there for 12 and watching it burn into the basement.
Well,
So,
and that most definitely, we need to have that, but we also have the resource available by simply grabbing that radio and asking for the ladder truck to go to an
Absolutely.
aerial pursuit for fire
Absolutely.
containment. So
What is our, just a rough estimate of what one of these costs?
well, you're about 1,800 probably, I'm guessing. I was supposed to have that information sent to me prior to this board meeting, but like everything else, it didn't happen. So I was hoping to have that to go with it, so you'd kind of know what we're looking at doing. But obviously, this is something I will have my facts and figures on. And with Mr. Lappin, maybe we can come up with some magical touch to get a grant. I'm listening. So if you got connections, I'm not a problem with writing.
He has more connections than any of us know.
All right. So, yeah, other than that, all in all, it's been very hectic, a very good learning experience so far in the first 5 days. I mean, I was here doing some stuff a little bit before the first 5 days, but it's finally starting to feel a little bit like, okay, we're getting a handle on it. And the guys have been great getting delegated jobs and stuff like that. And I just have no complaints.
Wonderful.
thank you very much, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moving forward.
Rhino has a-
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Sorry, another platform of asking a question. Can I ask maybe a question, here, Chief?
You know what, given the fact that you helped us, I will break
It's
protocol.
all part of the, it's all part of the fire update, and you're part of it.
My next endeavor would be learning the Roberts rule.
No worries.
Understand.
I'll help you with your holiday.
I just want to find out, just to clarify that run report period, it was from what date?
It was, I had Luke's running report from August 23rd to September 13th. Now, I will tell you that I did not verify. I asked him to get that information for me. That was a rough idea of what he gave me. Actually, Michelle and I were at the station when he was looking up all the data. So actually, they have quite a bit of stuff on file.
I was gonna say that way people online can actually hear you.
Sorry, I'm pretty loud. They probably heard me anyhow.
I'm sure.
So-
Yes, trustee Foley.
We are not officially done with the fire department. Are you moving forward?
I don't think we have.
Well, I mean, if you, yeah.
I'd just like to know where the fire committee is at in reference to where we're going and how we're doing the plan of any kind of a plan going forward of where this fire department's going. Like, what will it cost? How will it be paid for? And how long it's gonna take? I still have not heard any of that yet.
What item are you referring to, Mr.
All
Polly?
three of them, the plan. Is there some kind of plan for this township fire department to move forward?
Well,
That's never been asked to this chief before. That's been asked to the former chief.
I would say I would point the finger back to the engine of the rocket ship. Okay, like he had stated earlier, if you guys set a plan forth, I will certainly carry it out. Now, I will tell you that we're making the best strides possible, meeting with the insurance risk officer, making sure that we're going to get some policies and procedures in place. Because I see different binders out there. Some are 1989, there's some things that need to be changed. And with the insurance risk officer's help, Mr. Gabos, that we will probably be able to get something that we can hold in a real document and bring before the board to either have you adopt or approve, or, pencil different things in that you need changes to. I'm here at your disposal. So if not,
I understand that. I just wondered where the board is or the committee is or whatever we're supposed to be working on this plan. Where is it?
Well, I'm just, Thursday morning at 8:30, Nathan, Cash and I are meeting to crunch different numbers on different options of structuring that we will get input from our chief. So we're starting to move.
To figure out what
Costs
that
and
structure
where-
looks like.
Yeah,
Are those meetings open meetings or not? Because
They
they're not a
all-
full board.
All committee are open.
All right, so I'd like to be invited to that one, next one.
Thursday, 8:30. To not violate OMA, obviously you can't participate. So as
Can
an
we set up,
exo, or one of us could leave, that way we can always,
but can't we sit in the audience
Yeah.
and just not speak?
that's
So
what,
if it
that's
was-
exactly what just no participation.
Right.
Unless one member leaves, that way an ex officio member can take that seat. So
Well, that's what I asked. Is
Oh, yeah.
it an open meeting?
Yes,
Meaning under the Open Meetings Act, but apparently it's not.
no, it is.
Okay.
but
Committees follow OMA, so you can participate by attendance. You can't verbally participate unless one of the three committee members, and I would leave if you have questions. I have no issues with that. That way everybody can ask the questions and we can all be on the same side.
and I also just wanted to point out my phone number. I don't have the township number phone yet. We're having some issues with that, but I'm not going to broadcast it over but I will certainly give it to Michelle, to give it to everybody that wants to contact me at any point in time. After 11, I go to bed typically. So anything before that, we're pretty good.
So this committee is going to be working on a plan.
We're gonna be starting to look at, one, we have to look at this and take small bites of this elephant. One, we have to look at a 3 to 6 month plan and figure out, one, how we're gonna go through and navigate this fiscal year. And concurrently looking at the next fiscal and then going from a 6 month year. I mean, it's gonna be ever changing because we are still faced with all the same concerns as we were before in a previous discussion. So those things didn't just evaporate. Those are still concerns that we're definitely gonna have to face. So I think our agenda for that committee meeting was simply to crunch numbers, to look at how do we structure the remainder of this fiscal? What are our constraints and how do we look into starting April 1 and forward? Is it going to be an evolutionary process of closing out this fiscal with the means available and utilizing the resources at hand? And how does that transfer into the next fiscal? We're starting at the ground level.
So, and this is a personnel committee meeting then.
It's a personnel committee.
it started because we have to figure out who we can hire, how many people.
If,
What,
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
so
gonna be
that
part of the
would-
structure.
we are limited by our financial constraints, so
Mhm.
we can't move forward with hiring until we know exactly where we are financially.
At this point, if you will, three people, three full timers trying to cover this. Obviously, they're running into a ton
It's
of
not
overtime.
healthy.
It's not healthy. So we need to do something immediately. I mean, this, obviously, the action with James here was a good start. And obviously, we talked about this in personnel committee meetings, and I mean, I'm welcome, if you would like me to say what's some of the vision I've had, is that we need two more to run us at a minimum staffing level. So, I mean, like Nathan said, we're going to crunch numbers at the personnel meeting. Obviously, numbers runs everything. So anybody's suggestions that they might have, if they have something for me individually, they would like to hear me say or hear, call me.
Oh, I mean, even thus far, we're all looking at that same whiteboard and throwing darts.
Right.
One, we've started the discussion of 12-hour shifts. What are the pros and cons there? There's more discussion that needs to happen that can't happen this very second. So we need to look at what the math is for the remainder of this year. And I think, yeah, obviously the umbrella is what is the plan moving forward? We also concurrently have to look at what is the plan to get us through this year and provide the best level of service we can with the resources available.
And this is not a fast process because no matter who we put on, even though James has been in a period of training for 3 weeks, once his certifications come into where they need to be in our hands, we'll be able to implement him into this on-duty staffing right away. Whoever else we get, we're going to have to put them in a 2 to 3 week, depending on their level of, training. We're going to have to put them and train that individual on our equipment. There might have been a guy doing it for 20 years, but he has to know how to run our truck or our pieces of equipment. So that's all I have for you folks today. And if you have any other questions, fire away or call me or email me or
Oh, yeah, and I wholeheartedly support his statement. Any board member will make sure that communications
Great
lines
report.
are open. Yes, trustee Paul.
This meeting Thursday, is that the fire committee or personnel?
It's personnel. Yeah, by all means, come. I have no problem. I don't think the other members would have a problem once we get to a point of conversation. If there's something that needs to be discussed by trustee Polly, trustee Lapp, and trustee Reinhardt, or anybody else that isn't on that committee, I have no problem getting out of that room and affording those communication lines. So anything else at this point with fire department?
Thank you for the great report.
oh, sure, anytime.
5 days in. Honeymoon was over about 25 and a quarter hours before his first shift. But anyways, no, keep up the good work. Moving forward, old business, budget adjustments. I removed from the previous, I removed the work comp and the general liability from all. So it's a little bit haphazard, but what we do have in terms of revenue to offset balancing is the combined total of 2 GLs in revenue combined are $15,396.19. So outside of if you're ticking, tacking, making sure everything's balanced, we have ample revenue to offset expenditure amendments. So, any questions or? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to allow me to make the budget.
One question.
Yes, sir.
On the fire truck anniversary, annual payment, I guess it is that for the truck we bought like 7 years ago?
Correct.
Okay. So why did the price go up?
I think that's just the interest kind of, I think we're down to how less than, what are our payment, what is the payment schedule on,
We pay it once a year.
what,
We
2
owe-
years remaining?
I think we
1
have
year?
2 payments remaining. And when we adjusted, made the budget, we did not put the correct amount for principal and the correct amount in the interest line. So that's correcting that.
So, yep, that's just correct.
And the split out was not.
Any other questions?
I would just like to comment, I think it's just important for departments to stay within their budgets as much as possible.
Oh, most definitely. With that being said, I'll entertain the motion to allow me to move forward with the budget amendments.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to move forward with the budget amendments. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? I'll bring back the BSNA report to our next. That's kind of the one issue with, you have to do it separately because you can't start and say within BSNA using their own template to say, these are my proposed budget amendments. Once you start that process, you basically have to follow all the way through before you can generate that. So like I said, previously I used Michelle, the Excel Gurus format, and then kind of hacked it apart as I move forward. So, if there's no other discussion, roll call please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Okay, moving to new item 1, and I see that she is on. Oh, sorry.
One quick question. We tabled a couple items last meeting.
Yes.
And
That was one of them.
that was one of them. But we also, the tax rate request, where's that at? Or what do
We
do with
have not heard back, so we moved forward. That wasn't tabled. That was, we moved forward with that, and I have not heard anything come back from Judy Allen.
What we tabled was the medical supplies for the fire department, and Chief Hansen was reviewing that and going to bring it back to us when he's ready.
Yeah, the 2 items that were tabled were the budget amendments and
Medical supplies.
that?
medical
Yeah,
supplies.
that's okay.
Yep.
All right. I just wonder where they were.
Yep, so the latter is being reviewed by Chief Hansen. And like I said, with it being tabled, I actually extrapolated, pulled out the general liability and the work comp because we're still awaiting a check to offset some of those.
If you will, follow up with that. I'm not sure, but, the medical request of some about $2,400. I'm having a staff meeting Thursday. That's some of the items that we're going to speak of. Since our level is not the BLS level anymore, some of the items are not necessary for replacement. So that's just a little clarification. Hopefully we'll have a new total.
Thank you for the clarification. So without further ado, I know that your time is extremely precious, Ms. Lowe, but if you could unmute or ask to unmute Julie. Julie Lowe represents Eagle. She's been an asset because as you move forward, we are concurrently in a process of reestablishing our Brownfield Redevelopment Authority that we can get into, but I know that she has a meeting probably happening right now. But if you could explain the BRA and what our first project is looking like and just kind of give everybody else on the board an update.
Yeah, I can do that. And I'm sorry, I would definitely have time for you guys. I have to leave for Sheboygan in probably about 15 minutes because I've got another meeting, but I really do have time. So it's not like I'm super high up at Eagle. So anyway, I can meet with you guys whenever need be. So that's part of my job. But yeah, so what we got going on is the former bus garage in Alpena Township. And we have a new developer there who's working with a consultant. ASTI is the name of the consultant, and they're working to redevelop the property. Our agency and our division has been working on that property for the past couple of years, doing groundwater assessments, vapor mitigation assessments, soil assessments, and they're going to continue their work out there, but the the brownfield program. So I am the brownfield coordinator for the Gaylord district. So I cover your area. And I do brownfield grants and loans. And I also do Act 381 work plan reviews. And so this developer approached the township to ask about submitting a brownfield plan for this project. And they have some soil, groundwater, and vapor contamination issues that need to be addressed before the property is redeveloped. And they came in to Nathan to talk about, getting the Brownfield Authority sort of up and running, entertaining the possibility of a brownfield plan. And then just at a meeting that I had last week with everybody, including the developer and ASTI, we talked about a grant opportunity. So this is going to be a pretty big project and a good tax increase for the community. I think it's eligible and it's worthy of a grant, but we really need the Brownfield Authority to meet and discuss some of the things that are going to be coming to them. So we need to discuss a brownfield grant application and also this brownfield plan that will be coming in. And we've got to kind of move it a little bit quicker because, of course, we're working with a developer who wants, everything done right away. So I've been working with Nathan, the consultant's a developer, trying to build some incentives for the project.
And then could you also, because then if we're looking obviously for the last discussion, a great opportunity for grant, but with 381 and especially TIF and incremental financing. I guess I don't know how well versed anybody is with brownfield redevelopment. So maybe just discuss the capture and how some of these functions are paid off through this process for the board, please.
Yeah, so how this would work is they're going to submit a brownfield plan to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The authority has to approve the plan, so they've got to give you guys time to review it. That includes the capture. So it includes what we call a TIF table or a tax increment financing table. That shows the taxable value of the property, and then it shows payments over time of taxes as the property is redeveloped. And so that's really the best tool to try to describe like how the community will capture the taxes on the project. And then the money used, the money captured once we have an approved brownfield plan will be used to reimburse the developer for environmental costs. And so this brownfield plan, it originally, well, I'll just say this, it's probably going to be a 4 to 5 year capture. And what they're capturing are what we call pre-approved activities. And I don't mean to get into the weeds here, like I can talk to you guys more about this, but pre-approved activities include site assessment. And that actually doesn't have to be submitted to me in an Act 381 work plan. So what this brownfield plan is going to cover, it's going to be state and local tax capture within the Brownfield Authority boundary, so within the township. And it's going to show, a 5-year tax capture. And you're going to use that tax capture to then repay the developer for those costs. After the tax capture is complete, the Brownfield Authority can continue to capture taxes. And that money can be placed into what's called a local brownfield revolving fund. And so you can actually build up a fund you can use on other projects within the township for environmental activities, phase 1, phase 2, baseline environmental assessments, that type of thing. And so the details are really going to be in that brownfield plan with the capture. And so basically what happens with the grant is going to come in and pay for most of the activities for the project. So we're talking right now about a grant that's maybe $800,000 to $900,000. So it's a pretty big grant. The grant gets reimbursed through the township to the developer to pay for the environmental costs. So there's going to be two moving pieces to this whole project. But in terms of capture, the grant really narrows down the amount that you have to pay the developer back through your tax capture. So that's one of the huge benefits of the grant. But I don't know what else to say. It's hard to talk about it when we don't have a brownfield plan in yet. I know that they're going to be submitting one to the Brownfield Authority soon.
That's Laura.
I have two questions. Is there typically a match for the grant?
Nope, no
Or
match.
100%?
Yep.
And then my second question is, when you talk about this 5-year capture, that the tax money collected would be paid back to the developer. So basically, we wouldn't be collecting taxes from the new owner, is that correct?
No, you would still collect it from the new owner. Well, okay, I guess I'll say it this way. There's certain villages that cannot be captured, and that's going to show in the brownfield plan when they send you, the millage report. So you can capture state and local millages, just certain ones. And so the developer will still pay the property taxes on the property as if it's not developed yet. So they're continually paying on that site during the length of.
The value will just be different because it's not developed yet. There's not a building on it.
Correct.
Well, there will be,
But they're not gonna pay the taxes on that part.
so somebody's capturing the taxes from us.
We capture them and then we pass it along. We're basically a fiduciary for the developer through the Brownfield Authority. But then that capture also include, as you kind of said, was that part of the discussion of brownfield redevelopment is the hiring of a consultant, let's say McClellan. That some of those functions and administrative functions we can capture in any of our time. We can actually.
But they're still getting a break on their taxes for 5 years.
It's not a break. They're paying it to offset the initial expenditure.
Right.
And so the tax is constant, but
The
it's
value
just-
is different.
the value would be different for a period of time.
Well, basically, bottom line, if I understand this correctly, is that the taxes would not normally accrue to our general fund as other assessments on other properties do.
Yes.
So
That would be
the
a
capture
general-
is from us, by us.
To offset the original expense of the environmental work. And then once that, and to be clear, Ms. Lowe, so, yeah.
Right.
So just, yeah, so
Right.
once that capture is collected, then that business is fully on the books for tax assessment for the township, correct, Ms. Lowe?
Yeah, so I just want to point out, you're only going to capture on the increment. So you still have taxes being collected just like normal as if the property were not being redeveloped. And so it's only the incremental difference is what you're capturing to repay the developer. But yeah, after the brownfield tax capture duration is over with, then everything just goes back to the township like normal as if it didn't.
All
The
right, so,
brownfield.
but right now, we're probably not even collecting tax on that because it's school district property. So it's probably not taxed at all, correct? So
I think
then are we
that's the
working from
case.
zero once this thing starts, or are we working from an assessed value once it goes into private hands from the school district?
You're starting from zero, the way that I understand this, yeah.
So it's gonna be a 1-year offset to even start a capture. That was what Mr. Wackerman, I think, said, is that it's
Yeah,
even assessed values. If you make an improvement this year, it doesn't show on your taxes until the subsequent year. So that would be, there's gonna be a 1-year delay. So if it's a 4-year capture, that capture might not start until that second year.
I think I get that. But that wasn't my question, I don't think. My question is, if it's basically a zero assessment, zero taxed property right now, will it continue through the time of the capture, the 5-year period, at a zero assessment for, so we're not taxing anything for 5 years, or are we?
So we wouldn't, our general fund wouldn't get anything for 5 years because we're starting at 0.
Right, that's my question.
Yeah, wait, you're,
So-
yeah.
Well, and I don't know if at this point, until we get a brownfield plan, how they look at structuring that. Because that is a good point. It is a public school, so it's a non-taxable entity.
Right, but it has value.
It has value.
It has
so-
value as a bare lot, if they assume they're tearing down the building that's on it, to build another building. Yeah, we're not gonna get tax on the new building, but are we gonna get tax on the bare, are we going to be able to collect tax for our purposes on the bare lot? Or are we starting and gonna have for 5 years at a 0 assessment?
I think it depends on when they purchase this. So, you know, they did a baseline already for the property, but I mean, as soon as they buy it and it goes into private hands, and I know your treasurer's there, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, as soon as it's vacant land, private property, I mean, they would be paying taxes on it until the brownfield activity,
Yeah,
until the
That was
building.
the question.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
so I
would
may
make
be
sense.
confused when I said 0, but that was my question.
Yes, trustee.
So
Lang.
I have a question to whomever. Do we currently not have a brownfield authority?
So I will answer all of this. So
Okay.
what had happened is in 2010, our predecessors started a process. And actually got, the clerk actually followed it to the next extent. And I actually found a single piece of paper, not in the file that it should have been, from the Great Seal of the state of Michigan, stating that our brownfield is recognized. So now with that being said, that's kind of the real business at hand, is reestablishing the board to get that plan to a brownfield board that is appointed by this board to start the conversation.
All right, then you may have just answered my second question. As I looked at Act 381, it looks like Alpena Township can, within its municipal structure, create this authority, and this authority does not have to be a standalone entity.
Yeah, it's already been created.
Okay.
There's, I think in the McClellan, the subsequent agenda items that were sent, he highlights that point. I see it in Norm's paperwork right there on that page. He makes that exact same clarification. That's why when I found the Great Seal stating that it's already been established, that the entity, now we just have to fill
haven't
that
staffed
entity with staff.
All right, but it will be a commission of the Charter Township of Alpena.
Correct.
Okay, all right, good.
Yes. Any other questions for Ms. Lowell while we have her?
I'll just point out that Ms. Lowe also pointed out in her email to you that the legislation changed after this authority was created. And so that would be part of the consultant's job to bring things up to speed legislatively too.
Correct.
Yeah, it's really just with the bylaws. It doesn't have anything to do with how you guys filed, like you're good, your office of the seal, I mean, you're officially an authority. I was reading through some of the bylaws and noticed that they were written, I think in 2014, 2015, and legislative changes took place in, I think it was 16 or 17. So they were before we had to, and it's just it's just terminology that changed. So you may want to update those bylaws per the changes.
There's a reference to an ordinance too in those bylaws. So I guess we should be on the lookout for an ordinance too.
I've looked for it, and if you find it, happy birthday.
It's not in the ordinance.
I've looked through, well, actually, it was supposed to be in the resolution, is what I saw, and that's why I went through, up into the safe, went through all the resolutions, because I went to the meeting minutes of February 24th, 2010, and it was referenced in those minutes that they opened a hearing, discussed who knows what, and then close the minutes, or close that meeting. So it's hard to, with the lack of complete documentation, I've been trying to work to pull everything together that I can find.
If we could find minutes where they adopted an ordinance, we could probably go to the Alpena News and if they published it. find it.
Go on the, yeah, so. But this is something that prior to COVID, Ms. Lowe and Janice Adams, well, one of her counterparts, actually sat down with trustee Polly and I a year and a half ago. I think it was, you said that was the last in-person meeting that you had before COVID.
Yeah.
And so this is something that is the greater good for our community. The city has a very active brownfield authority. We know that we have a multitude of various ground contaminated sites throughout our district. That why not use every mechanism possible to, one, clean up the contamination, and two, increase our prosperity in terms of tax recruitment and business expansion, which has been a key point that I've been driving for going on 5 years. So are there any questions of Ms. Lowe since we have her time? Because this is gonna be.
Before I ask it of her, Kyle, I'll ask it of you because you may know the answer. What's the time frame to get this so they can move forward with their project and sale of the school district property? What's the time frame to get a plan together and all of that?
Well, the plan
And a
it comes
grant.
from the developer, and they submit a plan to what will become a BRA. Then the BRA recommends it to this governing body,
What is the area?
Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. I know, I get confused with my increments.
Well, you do.
Anyways,
When you're
so their timeline is exacerbated and extremely tight on this project. Because for over a year, unfortunately, the developer said, can't use brownfield, can't use brownfield, can't use brownfield. 3 weeks ago, I've always included brownfield. So the timeline, I believe after the last conference, my notes, basically, we need to have an organization, a board set, of which I'm prepared to make that recommendation, to have them meet a couple times to, one, go through the bylaws. It still affords us some opportunity to look at for the ordinance. And they want to have some direction. I think by the end of the month is what my notes kind of say. So it's an extremely tight timeline on this project, which normally would never be the case. But it is the case now.
My recommendation is then that we do what we have to do to help the process. So, you tell us what that is. I don't know.
And that's what the rest, I wanted this as just a nice informational, because we have our regional expert. And we're also blessed with the fact that the developer is using ASTI, which is probably one of the highest recommended and regarded consulting firms in the state, potentially Midwest, that are doing the brownfield plan. So this is kind of, as much as I hate being in such a constrained timeline, we also have the benefits of having the best organizations helping this first case kind of settle in and use it as a learning experience. So it's not, we're not using a Joe Blow, 2 men and a mower and trying to piece things together. So
The other question I have, which doesn't require the state expert, is what's our upfront out of pocket, if any? But,
well, there really won't be, because the bylaws that were passed, and I didn't add, and I can forward all the existing bylaws that were passed back in 2010. But all costs, from everything I've read, and correct me, all costs, especially if it's like a Mr. McClellan, who's a consultant that helps municipalities. He's actually contracted by the city for their brownfield authority. That cost and any administrative costs can be grabbed in that capture to some extent, correct, Ms. Lowe?
Yeah, I mean, you probably should be prepared that, there may be some costs that Mac charges as, because he's going to be acting, if he's selected, as your personal consultant for the Brownfield Authority. I can't guarantee that all of his costs will be covered with all of this. You're going to have to talk with Mac about that to be very specific, because we have a different consulting firm, ASTI, who's actually writing the Brownfield plan. Mac is not doing that. But Mac's assistants will kind of help the Brownfield Authority work their way through the plan approval and everything else. Now, that being said, your bylaws include an administrative fee to a developer. So when a developer submits to you a brownfield plan, they also pay a fee. I mean, that fee could be used to pay somebody like Mac to review the brownfield plan, bring it to a board, have conversations, that type of thing. I'm not sure what your fee is exactly established for that, but that's another mechanism too. So, but yeah, brownfield planning, it does include administrative and brownfield planning costs, but I don't want to speak for Mac as to what he's going to charge for, different activities that he's going to do to help you guys with. So I'd rather you just talked with him about that. I don't think
Yeah.
we know yet.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just worried about, we haven't budgeted any of this for anything for this fiscal year. And so I just want to
Correct.
make sure we have understanding.
Yep, duly noted. Lauren? Yeah.
So the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is under the umbrella of the Charter Township of Alpena.
That is correct.
So are the names on this letterhead the people that you were going to recommend to sit on that
That is correct.
authority?
They do not have to be electorates of the township. And as you look at the list, so the previous list is what was part of the bylaws. So they set forward a 5-member board, one from a financial, one from a business, one an economic developer, one planning commission member, and then the staff will include, but not limited to, a building zoning administrator and a township secretary. These positions are unpaid by our bylaws, and it would be my recommendation to speed this up. Why recreate the wheel? Mike Mahler is also sits on the Brownfield Redevelopment Board. He's got several years of experience helping the city through that process. So my recommendation to get the BRA board rolling would be to appoint Mike Mahler, and these would be 3-year terms. Mike Mahler, who's EDC and Target president, Michelle Woodruff from the Planning Commission, Nick Monti from the financial aspect, and Robert Young, business owner, 23 South, and then obviously myself.
They've all been contacted and agreed.
They've all been contacted, all agreed. We hit all of our markers for member denotated by the original bylaws.
Do you need a motion now or?
I would entertain a motion to appoint those 4 individuals for a 3-year term to the BRA board.
I make that motion.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion.
I think we should say the 5 people.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and myself.
Yeah, you don't get tag along, we gotta make you under too.
Just another hat. So we have a motion. We had support by trustee Lappin.
By Polly.
Oh, sorry, by Polly. I do apologize. He was further away from the microphone. Should
That's
have
right.
known.
If I'm up close, I'm in.
Any further discussion? Because this is the first part to help get, and like I said, this isn't a perfect scenario, but it's a truncated timeline. But all the moving parts are actually, fortunately enough, as very professional organizations with ASTI. So
ASTI.
I don't know what it's a consulting firm for the developer. So they're already doing all the environmental. I don't know what it actually stands for.
It stands for Applied Science and Technology, Inc.
Oh, there
And
you
the
go.
reason I know that is because I used to work for them when I lived in Brighton many years ago. Like, I can't even tell you, 20 years ago. So-
years ago.
Many. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, roll call on the board members, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. With that being said, now we have a board that will be brought in, sworn in. I'll set forth meeting dates probably as early as next week to get everybody in the same room. That affords me some opportunity to continue my search for an existing ordinance. But Tim?
I just noticed in the bylaws in the first paragraph, there's a reference to Alpena Township zoning ordinance. So maybe that's the ordinance it's falling back on. So That might solve that mystery.
may solve it. I'd roll those die when the time comes. Is there anything else? I want to let you go, but if there's any other information you would like to impart before you depart, that would be.
No, I mean, just let me know if you want me to be at the Brownfield Authority meeting. I'm happy to attend, so.
Okay, I think it would behoove the process to at least have you attend by Zoom. So once I
Sure.
confirm a date, I'll include you in that email.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, and also with that said, we don't need to vote on this. I brought forward the consultant. It was an addition to the agenda. None of us really like it, but the reality is the thicker packet from Mac McClellan or Mac Consulting Services LLC is his statement of qualifications. Untouchable. Basically, he's an extremely qualified individual, very familiar with our geographic location, has done work within our community. And for this, that's why, and the second is a consulting services contract. We're so new in this process, I tend to agree. I don't want to put that cart before the proverbial horse with any potential uncovered expenditures. But at this point in time, I also want to make sure that this project kind of goes without a hitch. And so in his contract, well, what he lays out as a services contract, he's listed everything. And as Ms. Lowe had stated, there's things that he has in this agreement on page, I believe,
We're still doing this.
4. He breaks out costs for everything, every function that he would do. All these functions primarily are already being covered by the developer in ASTI. So when you break that out, the fee is actually looking more like simply task 4, but therein, I'm green in this process too, so I don't want to misrepresent anything. There's still some moving parts to this I'm learning about. But I would just because the timeline is so short, I would make a recommendation to move forward with a contract with MAC LLC for the Aldi's project. So that way we have all the moving parts in place. Because we can actually, to the fee that she said, we can actually set forward a fee that could mitigate, because there'd actually be a smaller window than a full term of services that he's presented here. This is, a lot of the work's already been done by the other firm. So this is just very similar to the function that Rick Duell would provide for the planning commission, making sure that everything's dotted and every T's crossed.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, we have a motion on the table. Do we have support?
So who supported?
Nobody yet.
I don't, how,
I guess I'm not sure what the motion
Right.
is.
To move, I guess, well, the motion would be just to move forward with the utilization of MAC LLC for the Aldi's project.
So are we going to limit the amount of the consulting fee? to
Yeah,
12?
well, because he's included everything. So this brownfield plan that Ms. Lois stated is actually going to be coming from the developer. Most of these functions are already being done. So it's more so the development and reimbursement
I guess I
aspect.
think someone needs to
Are you
support before we have
Yeah,
discussion.
support.
Are you saying task 4? Task 4
Yeah, it would be prime, but we have a motion on the table. Is there support to continue discussion?
Support.
Okay, further discussion.
My question is, what GL are we paying this out of?
and how much are we paying? 3,000?
Well, and that would be part of.
We don't know.
Up to 3,000, I think, but at that same regard, some of these costs can actually be directly passed through to the capture of the tip.
Right, but I think that's then another fiscal year down the road.
Yeah, and there is some complexity to this. I'm not gonna.
So I guess I
but
want to know what the motion is. Is it like up to, I mean,
we-
if we approve the contract, we could pay up to 12,100.
So then if that would, if just up to, although, like I said, so
Not
the
to
majority of
exceed.
these tasks have already been completed in this case. Now, That being said, the next brownfield site, if we have Mr. McClellan on retainer as a consultant, then if we're designing these the brownfield plan or the Act 381 plan, then we know what he would charge the township to do those functions.
That's not what this contract is.
No, this is, right now, this is just to review and move forward.
Well, the review is just the first phase of 5, I think it is, or 6 phases.
Yeah, well, it'd be,
All of which total 12,100, but I assume it'd be paid over in increments as phases are completed. But that's phase 1.
Brownfield, task 1 is brownfield development application.
yeah, and these tasks, I want to make sure, because this is a little bit, these tasks, he would not be doing, because these tasks have already been conducted and will be brought forth by their consultant, ASTI. So,
Well, then doesn't this contract need to be modified to, or maybe it's worded in there that I haven't read, but because I didn't
well,
find.
and to be honest, I think that the best way forward with this would be to table it and allow the brownfield board to start that process, because I'm also, there's gonna be another consultant potentially throwing the hat in the ring.
I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna
So-
say, we should, if we're gonna do anything on this, like Russ had said, we should extract any
So-
task that is not the.
This is a
responsibility.
generic boilerplate, and because
So
of
we
the
have a-
time constraints.
A
I just
motion
want-
on the table. Or
Who made the motion?
I did.
Would you be willing to remove the motion from the table?
Absolutely.
We have a motion stricken, support. Who supported? Steve,
I did.
are you friendly
Yes.
to that being stricken?
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to table this matter.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to table to reconvene at a subsequent meeting. Is there support?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, and because then I can get the brownfield board more active
Should vote on the
and
motion, Tim.
get the timelines.
Okay, so are we going to vote on that?
Yes, but further discussion, Laura, you had your hand up.
I mean, I'd like to know where we're getting the money, whether it's 3,000 or 12,000. I don't know where we're gonna get the money. So I
Well,
would
that's
like
why
that
we're-
ironed out
I got
as
$20
well.
I can chip.
Well,
Actually, you're gonna have $40 because I think I owe you 20. But that's a sidebar, no.
We can pick up Bob.
So with no other discussion, let's, all those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Item tabled for now. I'll bring this back after the Brownfield Authority actually meets, and that way we can have more thorough conversation. Mr. McClellan could probably make himself available for discussion. Moving forward with new business is the R&R fire truck repair invoices that were presented. There were two different engines that were worked on. This is for E3 and E2 for a combined total of cost of service for $3,880.85.
Within budget.
3,880.85. That would be coming out of GL 225-336-981-0. Oh, sorry,
205.
205.
what was it? 205,
336-981-000 vehicle maintenance.
I'd entertain a motion to move forward with the payment of this invoice to $3,880.85.
And there is 21,000 in that GL right now.
Not used, okay.
Yes, there's 21,000.
What was the total? 3,800.
$80.85.
This is repairs already completed.
Already completed.
I think it was,
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have support?
I'll support.
I guess,
It's been
was
moved
this,
and supported for the discussion.
was this an emergency repair?
This looks like pretty routine.
How far do you want to get into the weeds? Because the
I was
person that
just
should be
curious.
answering that question isn't with us.
So is that supported by trustee Lappin?
Yes, it was. Yes, Lord.
Well, I mean, were these repairs or is this an oil change? Or, I mean, it looks like an oil change on one.
I'll do them for that.
I mean, is it maintenance?
I think it's an annual maintenance that MDOT, we have to hit MDOT standards. I'm speaking in the guys that,
It does say maintenance inspection engine
But the tail,
DOT report to follow.
So,
tailpipe
Something
hanger
that has to
clamp
do with-
broken.
yeah, so there are certain things if the state would ding us, they fix so that we meet inspections for 1 year.
Are these for our fire trucks?
Fire trucks, engines 1, or engine 2 and engine 3. as I
So
stated.
one is a 1988.
That is the chartreuse bomber. That was the Pierce Arrow.
Okay.
That was, as Chief Hansen stated, that was actually gifted to us
Yeah.
by
Right.
the MDNR plan program that we're partnered in.
So one of these days, those gifts become a pretty expensive gift. And so
Yeah.
I wonder if part of Chief Hansen's overall review of things shouldn't be to determine whether or not, at what point these old
Assets
pieces of
become
equipment-
liabilities.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a beautiful tipping point. Yes. We'll make sure that Chief
Yeah.
Hansen has the
I think it's a good
synergy to make
idea.
sure that. So we have,
That'll be a day 8
Sure you
night.
will.
probably.
so we have motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes,
Clerk Plavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. The next item of new business is quotes from F&B operations. The first being a primary curb pump and supply. Basically a brand new. There are 2 different costs but in further discussion with Catherine Nguyen, our operator in charge. With the age of that pump, it actually makes 0 cents to move forward with a $16,107 check, since it's already, I think, been in service for over 20 years. Yeah, well, yeah, that's for a brand new pump. 24,000 is the brand new, 16,000 to rebuild a 20-year-old pump.
Mhm.
Oh.
So that's the breakout. It's the recommendation of, I'm sure both Ms. Nguyen and Mr. Bracci, that we spend good money at a good problem versus putting good money at a 20-year-old piece of equipment in hopes that it gets us another 20 years down the road.
What are we paying us out of?
592-100-754-000. We have 133,000 remaining in that GL, but I would I'd follow the recommendation of our operator in charge to move forward with the replacement of a new pump.
At 24,000.
Yeah, Laura, I can't, sometimes it's hard to see it, so if you could just address me verbally, because I
Well,
barely catch your hand
okay.
sometimes, so.
But it's not just 24,393. It's
install
another
too.
Yeah.
$4,890 as well for
Yeah.
installation.
So, sorry, I didn't combine those 2 totals, but I just thought that kind of went hand in hand.
Yeah, but-
That cost would be for the 16,107 or the 24 because of the
You're looking at
installation.
the total cost.
So
Right.
yeah, 29,000, and I'm just doing some quick math. But the total cost between installation and the price is still under 30,000.
I know, I was just
Yeah.
wanting to know the
And
exact
then
price.
and that GL has 133,000 available. So,
I'll make the motion to pay the 29,000 plus, whatever the exact number is. With the opportunity for discussion after we, get the motion on the floor.
I'll support.
okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
Well, you said we had how much in that account still?
And in that GL that I'm recommending, the expenditure come out of 754, I believe the last one I looked at was 133,000, but Michelle did this print one.
133,000 for.
Okay. Between now and March 31, are we likely to have any more surprises that would be
Oh, there's
attributed?
always a dig that's a surprise, almost weekly.
Well,
Does it
So-
come out of that line?
Mhm.
No. Well, 754 is maintenance on system. So, yeah,
And
or
mean,
professional.
Are we
contractor
likely to have
services.
another $100,000 worth of
Well, we
expenses out
do
of that
have
line item?
a large expense, I think, coming from F&B because we went over our maintenance amount that's in the contract that she's reconciling. So we don't know what that bill's gonna be. yet
And
either.
we just had the $65,995 SCADA bill.
Yeah, the SCADA, the telecommunications.
SCADA,
that's- yeah.
No, but I mean, they're just, you know, just to point out that everybody's aware.
Yeah, and because the combined total, just so that the entire board knows, is $29,283 for the new pump. That leads us to a very good question as a board. Is a short period of time ago, city council approved a water rate increase. And I know that,
Well, we have a motion on the table.
I know, but I'm
Okay.
still
This
in
is
discussion,
discussion.
but thank you.
That's fine.
These are things that they're very, very valid questions. I think that this board is the first to really grab the bull by the horns and actually reinvest in our infrastructure. So we're in hopes that at some point in time, we're going to be done cleaning up errant past practices, very much like other departments. And I can leave it to Mr. Bracci to add, but these Michigan lift station is by far our most important lift station in our entire system. It has 3 pumps. We just rebuilt one. Actually, it was a new one that we had to take out and send back. That's been addressed. But what we have is we were down to 1 pump.
Yeah, we were down to 1 pump at that.
And then this is the one that's been barely chugging along. So now that we have a brand new pump in there, we can pull that one out and bring that.
So
up.
this is the 1 pump that was functioning at that lift station?
Barely functioning. We had one that was functioning fine,
Oh.
one that was removed, and then the replacement would be, as stated here on this quote, is to rebuild that existing pump would be the $16,107 plus the installation cost of $4,900.
So what's the status of the 3rd pump?
We have 1 brand new one. We have one that's fully, so we have 2 fully functioning.
We have 2 functional pumps.
Yeah, if you please stand to.
Currently what we have is we have 2 fully functional pumps. One of them is a 20-year-old pump that is functioning, but the capacity and
Life support.
other life, yeah, I mean, 2 of them just went, so that one I'm not sure. Like, nobody's torn into that one to look at it.
But that's 20 years old as well as the one
Exactly,
we're
exactly,
talking
the
about
one
on
we're
this
talking about
motion.
right now. However, we do have 1 brand new pump that's been installed. This one would be the 2nd pump, so you'd have 2 new pumps. If this goes in, you'd have 2 brand new pumps sitting there. It would operate, it can operate on 2 pumps fairly well. So then you could take that 3rd one out and get it taken care of if you need to, or you could wait, see if it runs good, let it be the 3rd pump, and it turn it into a lag pump, so only is absolutely necessary to run.
So it's a backup pump.
It could be a backup pump, but then at some point in the future, you really should take a look at that pump about getting that one taken a look at too.
Right. So, but we might be able to put that off until April 1.
Possibly, yes. I'm not gonna guarantee it, but possibly.
Or we might be looking at another
You're
30,000 there. at that
you're
lift
buying
station.
yourself some good time right now by at least getting 2 good pumps in there.
Okay. Does that increase the strain on the 2 new ones by not having the 3rd one fully
Without,
functional?
without doubt. I mean, it what it does is not having the 3rd pump in, the 2 pumps have to run twice as often.
Sure. So
So you're.
what we're doing is decreasing the life of those 2 pumps by the
Possibly.
3rd pump not being fully functional.
There's other ways that you could, possibly extend the life by adding VFDs so that they don't have to start and stop as often, because that's a lot of times where you'll have issues, things like that. Those are all things that, when this lift station was built, they didn't really. deal
I don't
with
think I'll
issues
ask you
like
in a
that.
public meeting
No.
what BFD stands for, but okay.
It's basically, it is a very frequency drive, so
Oh,
what it does is the pump doesn't have to, it doesn't have to start up, run at full speed and then pump down and then shut off. So what happens is the pump will sit there and run slower, ramp up. So it's constantly running. It's easier for them to run constantly than it is to start and stop.
sure.
You worry about them, kicking on and off, but that's when you get the hard charges and they tend to cause issues.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Any other discussion?
I guess just my normal question is, I didn't see that we had an alternate cost on the pump. It just Kerr is the place to go.
Kerr is the place to go. With the last one, we did have alternate pricing on that one. Similar, the prices did come in very similar to what it was. The secondary, And truthfully, for a pump like this, it's gotta be from a certain manufacturer.
Okay.
Because it's made to fit in that exact same spot. So that leads us to this one, it's almost where you have to sole source it. But they had the pump, they repaired it. It's their brand. So
And,
it's difficult to do.
all right, thank you. And this purchase is outside of that 5%?
Yes, that's why it's coming
Okay.
to the board,
Okay, gotcha.
because then we don't have an additional 5% admin. Yes. Yeah,
I wanted to make sure. you could see me.
I honestly, I would say that you should probably never do that. in
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
It
just
troubles me a
raising my
lot.
hand In a different way. Anyway, my question was, you started talking about
Oh, yes.
the
Well,
water
because-
rate increase.
Well,
and
I'm
I-
just saying, because the questions in this discussion are, as they should be, based around economics. And I just want to plant that seed. It's just because we are going to be coming slowly into a situation where our quote unquote profit margins are going to dwindle even more so because the city's rate is increased. We have not matched that. So it'd be a discussion downstream to have that.
Well, I think
consideration.
sooner than later,
Yes,
that needs
I'd
to be
like-
discussed.
I'm with you. I
I
would say
don't
let's
think we
have
can
it
go
on-
too
No.
far down.
Let's
No.
have it at our next agenda item.
Yeah,
Next meeting.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, no, so we have,
So we
roll
have a
call vote.
motion. Okay.
Yep, motion and support.
Yep, we got both.
We did indeed.
Giddy up.
And it's to do the.
20, yeah, for a total of $29,283 to come out of 592-100-754-000.
Okay, trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
yes.
Yes,
Trustee Reiner,
I jumped ahead. Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Now to the next item, coming from F&B is we're currently, actually what I'm hearing is extremely efficient with our contract for the Piper Tower. Would you like to bring the board up to? speed,
Yeah,
Mr.
essentially, I
Brown?
talked to the consultant that was out there that overseeing the construction yesterday morning. And I also talked to the contractor, and as of today, I believe they're hoping to get the second coat on the inside of the tower done, which means it starts approximately 7-day curing cycle. So in 7 days, we hope to fill that tower with water and disinfect it, give it a chance to soak, and then drain it, flush it, test it, see if we can get bacteriological testing passed on it and get it back in service possibly as quick as two weeks. So that's a lot faster than the 40 days that we had originally talked about.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're down somewhere in the range of about 4 weeks as opposed to 40 days. So, yeah, it's a little bit quicker than we hoped. But as part of that project, what we brought to you is costs of things that we found as we got into the project that weren't part of the original scope. Fixing a drain, sump drain that was kind of snaked up through there with a kind of like a vacuum hose that went up and pumped out. We now have that hard pipe, so we won't have to worry about that freezing and breaking anymore. The actual line for the sampling tap that we use in there ran underneath the floor, came up through the other side and did some other things. So now we're actually tying that right directly to the riser pipe. They replaced there was a expansion joint in the riser pipe that was getting old, starting to show wear. That's gone. And then the actual drain pipe itself had sprung a leak over the last year that we had water leaking out of the actual drain pipe on the tower. That's part of this. So that's where all these costs are coming from, is incidentals. Once you start tearing into it, find out what you need to that the people that looked at it originally didn't actually pick up because they couldn't see them. They were covered with insulation or other issues.
Drain pipe, what's a drain pipe?
There, on the water tower itself, there's a main riser pipe that goes up, and then as you get to the bottom, there's a drain pipe that goes off the side. It comes off and ties on to the drain pipe that goes outside. That if the tower overflows, there's a drain on it.
It's a safe.
It's a safety valve. And what happens is that drain pipe is a pipe that sits there with water in it. It's got a valve on it. And that's actually the pipe we use to drain the tower because we don't have another drain line on. We'd like to get a 6-inch hydrant mounted outside of the tower so we wouldn't have to do that again. But that's something we haven't got quite accomplished yet. And they're working so fast, we may not be able to do it, but we're gonna try.
Any questions for Mr. Braschi?
So this is about $6,000 additional cost.
$6,050.
Yeah,
Thank you for the.
So Mark, this is in addition to the
exactly.
with the people who are doing the painting.
The people who are doing the painting have done this work already. Yes, the work is already completed.
Oh, what's their name?
L&T
Okay, that's fine.
painting.
So I'd entertain a
Leo- Leo
motion.
and Tim.
Yeah, so I'd entertain a motion to move forward with an expenditure for the Piper Road Tower of $6,050 to come out of 592-100-759-000, which is the GL for water tower maintenance.
So without me pulling that thing back out, how much is in that line?
I can't tell you the exact, I know that there's 12 or 13,000.
Right now, there's 4,500 in it right now.
Water tower. Okay, I have my
Yeah.
version.
There's how much in it right now?
So we
then
don't have
it'd be-
enough to cover this.
Wait,
Yeah.
4,500 is what's in it.
So then it could actually come out of, instead of a 759 maintenance on system.
We should do a budget adjustment
Well,
because
that
it
could be
sh-
part of the motion.
because
allow.
it should come, I mean, it is
Yeah.
a water tower
Mhm.
maintenance, so we should
So
track
to
it under
still,
that
to
GL.
still come out of, but part of the motion that would be entertained would to also allow me to add this amended budget transfer of additional funds
From,
to,
where are you gonna get the funds from?
out of system maintenance with the 133,000, just to transfer the
Well,
balance.
it's now got about 103.
103, just about, yep. So I'd entertain a motion to move forward with this expenditure to come out of GL 759 water tower maintenance with the caveat that a budget adjustment would run concurrent, taking and pulling monies out of let's put it, 754, which is system maintenance, transfer the remaining funds out of 754 to 759 to that GL to make full expenditure of 6,000.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll add it to my amendment list. We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
Support.
We had,
So who made the
Uh,
support?
and they arm wrestled, and it looked like trustee Lappin. Russ
I deferred to him.
Russ tipped the hat. With that being said, further discussion. Seeing none, roll call, vote, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Okay. I'll add that to my amendments and bring those back to the entire board. The next item of new business is an update to the Gilmet construction agreement. Before you, this is the latest iteration, and it's an extension of the contract with Mr. Gilmet for his services, and also a reduction of a monthly payment. We have now reduced it to $1,000 a month. And we will be hopping into discussions with Mr. Pauly, who has now actually received his building officials license from the state of Michigan. So that contract will be on our next agenda and updating that, because it was always the plan with this partnership as Mr. Pauly gains his abilities through the state licensure, that Mr. Gilmet's time would decrease and Mr. Pauly's would increase. So we suspect that it will have his contract at our subsequent meeting. But at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to move forward with the updated contract for Gilmet Construction Services.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support? Support. Been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
Once we have a building official on board, is there a clause in this contract that will allow us to terminate that agreement upon that date?
With the Gilmet
Yes.
contract?
Yes.
We do not have, I don't believe that we have such clause, but I think that he is his own clause.
This is terminating.
Yeah.
It's 3
December-
months.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's just taking us through the remainder of our calendar year.
All right. All right, very good. Thank you.
Yep, not a problem. So any further
This
discussion?
is how it's scanned in. I have the original.
So any further discussion? A motion to move forward with the contract, and we already have it. So roll call vote, please.
Yes. Trustee Petty. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. And the last item of new business were the water and sewer lawn care bids for 2022. Local expert and Microsoft Excel put together
I love
the
the name.
three different quotes that we have received thus far and did a cost analysis and breakout. And they are, as you see, everywhere from A to Z and then back again. So I mean, we're kind of all over the place. I guess my recommendation, because I actually did come across a couple other companies that would like an opportunity to bid,
Well, I think
but I think they still can. I'm just gonna,
I'd contacted everybody I could find. I
yeah.
mean, so I don't see any reason why we
Well,
didn't really put a deadline on it.
So I guess the only question I would have is that if we're going to let this out for additional, excuse me, if we're going to let this out for additional consideration, anybody who's stepping in now would know
Yeah.
what numbers got to meet.
It's a
Oh.
little
Right.
telling.
Yeah.
Actually, we did put on, I mean, need to be back by August 23rd, 2021.
Okay, so we did put, okay.
All right, so
Well,
then it's-
I didn't know that. we
We're
put in
past
it.
that timeline. They'll just have to look at it some future date then.
Yeah, so we have three companies that have thrown their hats into the ring. I look to this board for a recommendation. The only company that currently we have used for, I believe, the lawn maintenance here at the offices, and then also the bypass maintenance is Grasshoppers.
They also do our plowing.
Yeah. Bypass maintenance, I guess that's how my brain thought, was the plowing for the bypass, both on M32 and 23 South. I'll leave the table open. We want to secure a contract, or do we, what is the direction of the board? This is for 2022, so.
Was this to include, this was just for mowing services?
This is for
And
mowing of
cleanup.
our water towers and our sewer lift stations.
Right, but you had said that Grasshopper also has a contract. Is it a separate contract for
Yeah.
snow plowing? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And cleanup is also. included.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we have we have put in there some cleanup, and usually the first of the year cleanup, that always has to happen, so.
Am I missing something, or do we only have one that gave us a total contract bid price for an annual period of time? The rest of them just gave us a time amount per hour. Is that,
It wasn't per hour, it's per site.
or per site? Okay. So,
These numbers are dramatically different than one another. Is it-
Yeah.
is it-
That's- I have a hard time going, how can there be such
oh,
a,
there's a total bid,
one is more than 3 times the other,
Right.
or all.
almost 3 times.
Yeah.
I like the name of that one too.
I don't know which one you're talking about right now, trustee Reinhardt.
So I guess,
I just relate to it.
my question would be that all things, as you went through the analysis, whoever did this, what you see is consistent with one another?
They're all just saying this is what it would cost. They're not, I mean, Laura typed up the specs
And then the
and they just said we would charge $25 a mow or $5 a mow or.
And so what does a mow mean? Does that mean
Per
that?
site,
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but I mean, is one doing it every 10 days and somebody else doing it every 3 or 4 days?
Well,
Must
like
do it
the
twice a
two old parts lawn care, for 28 weeks between April and October, that's once a week. April through October.
Well, and it did say in the specs which are included, they shall mow and trim the grass, maintain sites, mowing, trimming, whenever the height of the grass reaches 3 inches, but not more than once every 7 days. I mean, we just didn't want somebody going once, every
All
other
right.
day. And it was for the next year's season. Some trimming will be done each time the mowing occurs.
All right, well,
They would provide liability insurance.
yeah, I got all that.
I mean,
it seems like there's such a dramatic difference that I wasn't sure if I was missing anything. That being the case, since it doesn't appear as though there's any differences between them, I make a motion that we take the lowest bid of Two Old Farts Lawn Care Services.
I'll support that.
Okay, we got a motion and support on the table for moving forward with the 2022 season, utilizing Two Old Farts Lawn Care Services to the tune of an annual cost of $3,360. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I guess that would also be, now they would have to have the same insurance policies as any other primary, correct? Like $1 million policy?
Well, that's not what the contract says. All the contract says is that you'll have insurance. It doesn't say that you'll have X number of limits. And so.
That's
that-
my fear.
Yeah, so my sense would be that they probably have a higher limit because it's, with what they do is so inexpensive to do it. But that's for future reference, there needs to be
Specific
more
amount.
specific information put in
Is
there.
that in the spec?
Number 6.
The
yeah.
insurance requirements are in the spec?
Yeah.
Just that they carry
Yeah.
insurance and name us as an additional insured.
But you could have 100,000.
Good, but
And you could-
highly unlikely.
You can maintain that.
So can we request that as part of the motion that they carry, would you say 100,000?
No, I would go a heck of a lot more than
Oh,
that,
yeah,
but
because
no,
I
to-
think our
to-
No,
to-
I didn't know what
typical is
your-
$1
to-
million policy.
To answer your question, if we make that recommendation and they don't carry that much, then they would be, they could come back to us and say, it's going to cost you, $35 more. It won't be a lot.
No,
whatever
I'm
it
just
is.
saying we could make it contingent upon that.
Could, but it would deviate from the contract. And so,
Yeah, because we can't allow work to conclude or to be done without that contingency. And I,
No,
agree,
yeah,
it goes against the contract, but.
So what-
yeah, so I guess,
Well, we can modify the contract.
You can,
Right
trustee
now.
Polly?
Can we just scrap this and redo it?
No, that was a lot of work to go through that.
I just made it.
But I mean, I
You
think,
got all kinds of things going different directions. there.
what about Grasshopper? What do they provide? Do they
They
provide
have
this right
they
now?
have $1 million policy.
I mean, Steve made the motion, but I think make it contingent upon them carrying.
Comparable government.
Is this a contract or is this
No.
just?
That's just the
specs?
specs.
bid.
There's
this is,
no-
this is
It's not a
essentially.
contract.
These
Can
were
we-
just specs.
This is essentially an expectation, and we've stated the expectation that they'll maintain liability insurance. That's
Yep.
all we've said.
We did a request for proposal. They did a bid and tell it's not a contract until we accept it or accept it with modifications.
Chief Hansen, not one of the Two Old Farts, has something to add to the board.
I'm just wondering if the township has a standard with any other contractors that they're currently using. Like for my last place of employment, if you did X service, you had to have a certain amount of liability for any project that you did. And it was broken down by category of projects, but there was always the minimum standard of $1 million
Right.
liability.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I don't believe we have that, but with many of my clients that I do this with, I do exactly what you just said, depending upon the severity of what they do. And so it is not an unreasonable request to have not less than $1 million of coverage. So I guess I will
Would you make it
amend,
friendly?
I will amend my motion to accept the same firm contingent upon them having limits of liability of not less than $1 million.
And for the township to be added. as an
And for the
additional
township to be
insured.
added as an additional insured, yes. I would modify that a little bit more, but that'll be fine.
And are you friendly to the friendly
Yes.
amendment to the
Yeah.
motion? Okay, we have a friendly motion. Any other
And it did
discussion?
say in number 6 that we were an additional insured.
Okay,
It was already in there.
okay, so,
saying that.
And just final added discussion, not necessarily specific to this contract, that having an insurance rider, insurance policy that we put in place for contracts with everybody is not a bad thing. The county has that. Another company I do work for has that. It's pretty standard stuff.
we actually, in the water department itself, I think every contractor that we even look at, that looks at our infrastructure, must maintain $1 million policy that we have to have on file. So
And
we
it-
do have some standard. We don't have an exact approach to it, but.
Well, and there's
historically-
needs to be, and especially in a contract like this, there needs to be some work comp consideration if they have employees as
Mhm,
opposed to
mhm.
owners that
Yep.
are doing the work.
Yep.
So, there's more than just that. I mean, under some circumstances, maybe we could even have auto liability coverage or concerns because if they're transporting their equipment to our site. So there's more than just general liability issues here.
I have that almost as a template in my computer,
Yes, so you could
so I
maybe
can,
provide
get
that.
that.
I can easily do
Mhm.
that.
Forward that along. We have a motion and support to move forward with the contract. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes,
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
No. Keep getting it.
Yeah.
Okay, that concludes our new business. This is the second opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody online that has public comment, please use the bottom taskbar to raise your hand or text to let us know that you have any questions or comments. Oh, well, Mr. Rhino Schultz.
Sorry, let me just,
No-
I'll
no
follow the rules
apologies
this
needed.
time. Just maybe a question or a comment from a public point of view. Is there a person on the payroll of the township that takes care of PR? That has PR contacts, that does press releases? How does that process work?
Well, press would be myself. Outside of myself, when it's site specific to the functions of the fire department, that would be the chief.
Okay,
Outside of that, I hate
Okay.
to say PR, but yeah, I kind of fulfill that role. So if you have any recommendations, I'll take them.
okay.
Like
no,
changing who does that.
That, no, I was wondering about that, the story of the firefighters that had a successful resuscitation on Monday. I don't know if that was carried in any newspaper or anything, but I think that would be a fantastic proactive PR
Mhm.
opportunity to put something out there because remember not too long ago, we were discussing the negative PR that the fire department was getting. Now the fire department's doing excellent things, but we're not getting the positive PR opportunities out of
Great
it.
opportunity for
That'd
the
be
deputy clerk.
Pretty much the primary reason that it was brought forward today, because we so easily can be distracted and look at negatives in life. And we can always overshadow even the sustainable positives because we become numb to them.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that Chief Hansen can probably put together a draft. I think that acknowledgement goes a long way, and this was the first step.
Yeah, and maybe when the patient recovers eventually,
Well,
maybe
there's
they
a
would
lot of
be-
HIPAA in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna want HIPAA.
There's some technical difficulties potentially in that
No, for
scenario,
sure.
but
But we
yeah,
can see how we can milk
nonetheless,
it.
duly noted. So,
That was it.
Thank
public
you.
comment, Chief Hansen.
One more.
Public comment, Chief Hansen, what you got?
How foolish of me not to present this earlier in my presentation, but we had one of our firefighters, Tom Tolan, was awarded the Tunnels to Tower Footstep Award last Saturday. So it was put, I gave it to Mr. Schulowitz. Okay, the news reporter. He's going to have a story online, and I guess they're going to follow up with a paper version. But we are very much going to be looking at getting our word out there.
And we
So
have.
what award did he get?
It's the Follow the Footsteps Award.
And what does
The
that?
tunnel.
Tunnel to
Yeah, the
Towers.
911
It's a award that they gave from Steven Sillers from running from the tunnels to the towers a day. And it's basically his dedication to the service, training
So
people.
it recognizes Tom's dedication.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and I failed to mention that earlier, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Great public comment. No, good addition. We actually have currently watching, we have Miss Maddox from WBKB, and we also have Bruce Johnson from WATZ. So maybe that's something that they'll pick up on. Is there anybody online with public comment? If so, was there anybody that? Yep, and I think we've covered public and non-public for public comment. Further discussion by the board. Yes, trustee Polly.
I would like to see come back to this board on a monthly basis. Department reports from the clerk, the treasurer, and the supervisor that we had, and all of a sudden they disappeared. Preferably the first meeting of the month for the previous month. They don't have to be detailed, but some ideas of what goes on in our township that we're not aware of.
Most definitely. That's easy to correct. Yes.
One
trustee.
other thing I would like to see, that chief, when you get resumes, that the rest of the board members get an opportunity to look at these resumes for people that you want to recommend for hiring.
Norm, do you want copies of all the resumes or just the ones that they're interviewing or?
The ones that the board, the committee has come up with, this is who we're
So when
choosing
when
from.
he's going to recommend somebody.
Yeah, so when
Okay.
you're recommending somebody and you've got three of them, but you recommend one, I want the three. I'd like the three.
Absolutely. We'll give you any information you need.
Yes, Laura, I saw your hand pop up.
Well, I think it would be, I mean, if we're gonna do department reports at the beginning of the month, I think it would also be nice if there's anything going on with the 4 trustees that they'd like to give us a little, you know what I mean? If you guys have attended anything
I
or
think the
working on
assessor needs to be part of
anything
that too.
specific,
building
it would be
department,
great,
All
right?
department.
All
heads.
departments.
There you have it.
Yeah.
All departments. Easy peasy.
The four of us don't have a whole lot of.
No, but
I think to
sometimes-
some extent, if we
Right,
not,
but-
if we don't drop in here,
No,
couple
you
times
may
a
go
week,
to-
we
you
may
might
not
go
know
to
enough.
a conference, or you may be working on something or be in a committee or.
unfortunately, a lot of things I'm working on are confidential, but okay, yeah, I can do that.
I'm not
Um,
asking
Is there
to be
anything else for the
confidential.
good of the order? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there support? I'll support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 1:37. Thank you very much.